don't fight, chasing shadows in the night. Promises made, but I let them fade. Caught in the cycle, I'm feeling betrayed. Round and round, I'm losing ground. Trying to break free, but I can't see. These negative patterns are haunting me. Nights turn to days, I'm losing my way. Thought I found peace, but it's led me astray. Chasing the high, but it only brings pain. The more I run, the less I gain.
Hey everybody, hey! Welcome to another session of Tarika Say It Again. And we are in the office today with Miss Danielle Graham. And she's here today to talk to us about mental health. More specifically, the
suicide aspect.
more specifically, the suicide aspect of mental health. And you know, before we had a counselor in the office and she spoke with us on depression and anxiety. So we're going to dig deeper today with the suicide. More serious, more severe. But we definitely want to tune in, jot down anything that we feel is necessary, but pay attention to these key words and the story that she will be sharing with us. All righty, ma'am.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
So unfortunately in 2014, I lost my brother to suicide.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
Definitely.
So my mom and I decided that we needed to do something about it because he actually went onto social media and posted his last post, which was, "I am not worth it."
Wow.
So we turned that around and made our nonprofit. It's called Worth It Suicide Outreach and Support.
Worth It Suicide Outreach and Support.
It is kind of long, but we do have an acronym for it, so we call it Worth It SOS.
Okay, Worth It SOS.
Yeah, for the help portion of it.
Okay. And you know SOS also someone special.
Right, there you go.
Yes.
You go. Works both ways.
Yes.
So we started off doing, we would flip furniture and sell that and use that for counseling services.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, we were always in the garage painting and refinishing furniture and things like that. So it wasn't really the purpose that I felt was the closest to people.
Okay.
So we wanted that interpersonal connection to be able to talk to people one-on-one. So that's where I got the bright idea to buy a 40-foot school bus. And I refurnished it and refinished it and took all the seats out and made it an RV.
Okay.
So I travel around the United States in order to help people personally and let them know that they are worth it.
Right. Okay.
So that's a tremendous way to get in front of people and have kind of that bus as a billboard that you can use to talk to people. So
that's
it works really well.
Exactly what it is. And not only that, turning your pain into purpose by taking this, as you would say, this tragic situation and reaching out to others, bringing awareness to it. So in thinking about that, how did you all start? I know you mentioned as far as the furniture, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the first step.
So when I was doing the furniture, what shifted from that to being an interpersonal connection, like going and speaking to people, because the furniture takes you away.
Yes.
It takes you away, and yes, it is a good income source for the counseling. However, you're not really talking to people to figure out what they need. So that's where it came in to say, like, what are the resources that are available to people that can help them in different ways?
Mm-hmm.
So psychology, psychiatry, equine therapy, peer-to-peer support groups, all these different avenues that people might not know about are available to them. So we became a basic one-stop shop for resource, so we can explain what these things are to people and what they can find in their specific area. So being a national and also a local organization, it helps us because we can look up your specific zip code. If you're looking for a psychiatrist, if you're looking for a psychologist, or any kind of therapy in your area, then we can find that where you are. So we don't have to be where you are in order for you to find help.
Right.
So, and then this gave us the opportunity to work with individuals and actually talk through things with them so that we know for sure we're giving the right information as far as, okay, if you want talk therapy, you go to a psychologist. Mm-hmm. If you want psychiatry, they can give medication. So a lot of people don't know the difference between psychiatry and psychology.
And I'm glad you bring it
Oh,
down.
okay.
Yes, break it down for us. So psychiatric and psychology.
Yes. So if you go and see a psychiatrist, they talk with you, and if it's a depression or if it's anxiety or schizophrenia or any kind of mental illness, if it's a bipolar, they can prescribe medicine to you.
Right.
So not only are they speaking with you to find out what that diagnosis would look like, but they're also saying, okay, maybe this medicine would be the best for you. Or maybe you have, 3 different things that you're kind of contending with, so you don't really know where to start. So a psychiatrist can help you out with that and maybe guide you to a medication that will work best. Whereas psychology is more talk therapy, so like cognitive behavioral therapy or EMDR, which is eye rapid movement.
So checking like their behaviors and body language, and you're kind of reading
history.
Them. Okay.
Yeah. So it kind of lines up your story to see where you are in life, what your understanding is. I can't really get into the dynamics of that because I'm not a doctor, but typically it's more talk therapy.
Okay.
So, but they don't prescribe medicine. And in some cases we have, spoken to people that they've tried many different medications and they're just not working. So maybe you want to try a different doctor, or maybe you want to try the talk therapy, and maybe the talk therapy or the psychologist can reference a psychiatrist,
right,
or try to find a group of mental health people that work together so you can share that information with everyone,
right,
which is very difficult these days.
So have you found in the clients that you work with, have you found that there's been some history or some patterns?
Yeah, it runs the gamut.
Okay.
Yeah, it runs the gamut.
That's
because there are people that do have a history of mental health issues or generational, like you say.
Because that goes back to my book that I always talk about.
Generational trauma.
Yes.
So that has to do with it. Could be addictive disease, or even if it just started. So it goes from the one extreme to the other, or maybe they just, are questioning. I do see a psychiatrist, but maybe I want to get off medicine. So what's the best way to go about doing that?
Okay.
So then we can kind of sit down and say, okay, you maybe want to talk to a psychologist or your family doctor. So there's a bunch of different levels of severity, but then that leads the whole, into the suicide factor. So first off, we always say that if you ask someone if they're suicidal, that doesn't mean that you're going to make them suicidal.
Okay.
So, because I do get that a lot, where people are afraid, and fear has a lot to do with questions that we ask and the way that we do things.
Something like, because you're bringing it up, they feel that they might think about it and want to actually do it because you brought it up. Is that how you're
Or maybe kind of planting a seed.
Gotcha, planting a seed.
So if they weren't thinking about it before, now they are because I've asked. And it's a guilt thing too. Like, what if I say something and now they do it and I'm guilty because I said something? But that's not at all how it works.
Gotcha.
So if someone is suicidal or has suicidal ideation, they've been thinking about it. So it's always the first question is, are you suicidal, or are you thinking about hurting yourself? And then you immediately go into, do you have a plan for that? Because if they have a plan for that, then they are really seriously contemplating this, activity. So we always say, get, help as fast as you can. But the problem there's a gray line there, because you need to be invested enough to let people know that you care and that you're kind and you listen non-judgmentally, because that could make things go a lot sideways. Where if we could say, are you suicidal? Are you thinking about harming yourself? And they do say yes, and you ask if they have a plan, and they're like, well, I didn't even think about it that far. So now we know that there is some space here to jump in and say, I have resources for you. I know somebody that you can talk to. Is it okay if I stay here with you so that we can explore this together? Or maybe I can call family and friends. Or if you don't want to talk to them, do you have a friend? Or is it me? Is it me in this moment that has this information available? So it's a big, huge, huge question.
And I just love how you just write in and say, do you have a plan? Like, just being direct, speaking freely and candidly on it to see how you can assist.
Right.
Wow. Because we always talk about, having those discussions and talking about those tough things, those topics that are hard, you know, and difficult. So the fact that you're like open with it, like, hey, you know, what's going on? How can I help you? Have you started this? You know?
And it's so important to be that way also because it gives the person faith and hope because they see it in you that, oh, okay, well, if they're open enough to say it that way, then I can share.
Right.
So it kind of gives them some leeway to say, oh, wow, I've never actually been asked that direct question. Because if we don't ask directly, like if you skirt around the issue, it doesn't give them that opportunity to be free and release that information.
Right. Do you have a age group that you deal with specifically, or just anyone that
anyone?
Okay.
Yeah. Suicide doesn't have an age, doesn't have race, doesn't have, you know, I mean, yes, there are the statistics that come out that tell you, you know, the second leading cause of death or the 10th or 11th leading cause of death. And this changes, it fluctuates. So that's another thing I got stuck in. I got stuck in the statistics, and people aren't numbers to me. So I just started paying attention to my closest circle. So I gave out my phone number, I gave the email, I gave just information to anyone. If you had a question, here you go. So now it's kind of word of mouth that people say, oh, I know somebody that could do that, or oh, didn't I see a bus that had like Worth It on it or something? So they know that, okay, this person knows more than I do or can help in any way. So it is everybody, because it could be a financial issue, it could be a bullying issue, it could be loss of a partner, it could be any kind of tragedy. So no matter where you are socioeconomic, no matter where you are in your life, you know, we could be one step away from complete change.
Right.
And again, that's scary. So it's dealing with fear, it's dealing with hope, it's dealing with faith. So it's always a bunch of different things that need to connect in order for things to be healthy and thriving.
And that's key that you say healthy. So success stories. Do you have any success stories to where somebody reached back out and say, hey, you all helped?
I do. So when I was actually on the bus, I was traveling, and I try to pre-plan as much as I can, but sometimes things go awry that you can't really help. But I did have a woman that reached out to me, and I was along her route, and I had originally planned to meet her and her family, but something happened and I wasn't able to come. But she wrote me later, because that wasn't all I said. I made sure that she was okay. She was in a safe space. Everything was all right. And the conversation that I had with her that day left a lasting impression for her. So she contacted me back and said, you know, thank you for putting the effort out to let me know, even though you couldn't come, that is so important to you and that you're always here if I need to reach out. And because I made sure I didn't just leave it as, hey, I can't make it. It was more involved to me to let her know that, yes, in fact, you know, I do care about you. This is just a matter of logistics on transportation part of things. So she knew exactly the conversation that we had made a lasting impact. And then there's also other scenarios where it's usually one person removed that I talk to. And I say usually because more often than not, it'll be like a friend or family member that'll contact me and say, hey, my friend is struggling. Hey, I have a coworker that mentioned this. Hey, my grandma, you know, something like that. So in many instances, when they reach out, I also tell them to share my information with that person. That way they can get it from them and I don't step in. But there have been so many instances that when the information is shared, that person will contact me and say, thank you so much. I got a doctor. I went to your website. I found some resources. I'm, you know, in a different county, but I know how to look up a therapist. And so they would say, thank you for that information. So it's just those little things help so much.
Yeah, you're letting them know, like you said, that they are worth it.
Yes.
And that's the name of it, you know, sharing that, those affirmations.
Yes.
Those are vitally important. And as a parent, that's one thing that we want to always make sure that we're doing. We're speaking those things into our child at a young age. That's what builds the confidence, you know. So it doesn't even have to be a loved one, you know, special people like you, you know, going out and just speaking those positive affirmations and reaffirming and just letting them know, hey, I'm here for you. Like you say, those little things, that's vitally important, definitely.
And one of our core values is to listen non-judgmentally, because it's so important to hear what people are saying.
Yes.
So if you're just listening to respond, it's not gonna get you anywhere. I think that's Steve Covey, right? That said that. So one of my favorite sayings. So yeah, I mean,
lending an ear.
Yes, and a shoulder without judgment, regardless of what people are going through. I mean, like I said, if it could be one thing that is a catastrophic failure that causes everything to go awry, and we could be there tomorrow. We never know. So just being there for each other and being kind, but don't forget to be kind to yourself too, because that's where it starts. You're your own advocate. So you have to try, and you have to find a way to find hope. If that is through religion, if that is through any kind of spirituality, if, whatever that looks like to anybody, it's just so important to be kind to yourself and know that you are your biggest support. So if you find, or if you feel like something's not going right, or if you feel uneasy, or if you feel, just different things that you can't really comprehend, it's worth it for you to reach out and say, I got to keep trying this. I got to keep, maybe I need to do it a different way. Maybe I need to bring something else in my life, So it looks different for everybody, but just being kind to yourself and knowing that you're worth it for sure.
Right. And I like the consistency, basically, is what you were saying. And I like how you brought out the spirituality, whomever you feel is your creator.
Yes.
Looking to him as your guidance, having that open relationship to put you on the right path. There's one other question that I have. What does the outward manifestations look like when we talk about suicide? Is that something that you are at liberty to speak on? And I say that like example,
like signs and symptoms kind of thing?
Yes,
okay.
Definitely.
Yeah. So when we started this, we knew nothing about it. We knew nothing about it. I say that lightly because when I was 15, I did have a suicide attempt.
Okay.
But it was more, I was scared. I was alone. I didn't know what else to do. But it was my brother who saved me, the one who passed. So then, it came full circle, because when he passed, it was like, we went through this before, and he was supposed to be smarter than me, and he ended up doing this. What is going on? So that led us to go to trainings and health advocacy groups, and I mean, you name it, we took it. And so through like ASSIST training, through NAMI and AFSP and all these acronyms that are huge suicide organizations, they teach that, again, it doesn't cause somebody to think about suicide if you ask. Because if somebody is displaying, like, if they become reclusive, or if they stop doing the things that they once enjoyed, if they stop caring about their appearance when they cared before, if they stop worrying about their responsibilities, taking a step back from those responsibilities, or stepping away. So there's a bunch of different signs that you can see, and maybe you might feel as though you're overstepping sometimes, because maybe you're not that close to that person, or maybe it's you have a coworker that you don't feel comfortable asking, but you might be the only one that does ask that question.
Right.
So it's important that, hey, if you see something a little bit off, then ask. It's so uncomfortable. I get it. Even with going through training too, now I can say it. But when I'm in that deep conversation with somebody, and I know, you can just see it in their eyes that they're asking for help but not saying it, you have to ask.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, it's a lot. Even through the training, like one of the trainings we took, we had to literally stand on a chair to pretend that we were on a ledge. And the person in training, had to talk us basically off of the ledge.
So kind of like role playing.
Yes.
Did you all get the opportunity to switch?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was deep. I mean, it took us back. It still now does, because I didn't know that I was the one to do that. I didn't know that I had that capacity. And so it's kind of like growing into that role, because I was so scared, and I didn't want to, I can get you help with somebody else, but I'm not the one. But we are. Whoever you are, you have the capacity to be there for somebody. It's as simple as that.
To make a change in their life.
Right.
Wow. It's just serious, just listening to.
It's a lot.
Yes, the knowledge that you're sharing. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, hey, let's take a deep breath.
Yes, take a deep breath. Yes.
Okay. So going back to your bracelets, and if you don't mind,
Oh, absolutely,
taking
yeah.
one out and sharing it with them,
Sure.
and your pamphlet, if you can give the information on here.
Yep, so that just gives, it's just a resource card.
Okay.
So it just says it's hard to know the answer if you don't know the question. So that kind of lends to, here are some questions that will make you feel more comfortable when you're asking these things. And then it also does have the signs and symptoms on here. So you can kind of say, okay, are they sad? Are they, have they been sad for a while? Because that indicates depression. So it kind of gives you a little bit of that information. And then the crisis intervention line and our contact information.
Okay. And I do want you to share that before we close out. But I also wanted to mention, because just listening to what you were saying, when you go to the doctor nowadays, if you haven't noticed, those are the questions that they're asking
Yes.
you. Are you sad? Are you having difficulty? You know, has it been a lack of appetite or loss of appetite? Like, they're asking those type questions that could be those signs and those symptoms of depression.
Yes.
You know?
And that lends into the stigma side.
Okay.
Because sometimes you'll go into the doctor and they just start asking you these questions about your mental well-being. And you're like, if I answer this as a yes, are they going to put me away? Or, you know, what's going to happen? What's the repercussion of this? And so if you find yourself saying, oh, what that doctor asked me might ring true, that's the scenario. Right. You need to reach out and get some more information. I mean, what's it going to hurt to gain information? It's all about learning. So if we learn about these little things, maybe it will help us. Maybe it will help somebody else.
Right. Definitely. Okay.
So this bracelet, we have these made all the time for everybody. So it says I am worth it on it. And then it also has our website. So you can go on there and get, we have a resource list and also a contact form so you can contact. And everything's pretty much anonymous. Or if you want it specifically that way, you just let us know. And we're not bound by HIPAA, but we do kind of say it's not our responsibility to share the information with anyone unless it's a crisis emergency.
Gotcha.
So,
all right. So, is there anything else that you think might be helpful? Listen, you gave us a lot.
I know I did. I'm sorry. So much.
No, don't
So much.
apologize. It's needed. Being in the education system, you know, we see a lot of that going on, and we have counselors actually on site, you know, in these schools to help them. And sometimes they are overwhelmed. You know, you have to make appointments to get to them. But of course, it's according to the severity. They
Right.
may have to cancel something or push someone else to the side that's less severe. But they are overwhelmed in the schools. And you don't remember that. Like, I don't remember that years ago.
Right.
So things have definitely changed. The mental health is definitely key these days.
And I just heard today, I don't remember what I was listening to, but autism and ADHD and depression are a really high diagnosis rate right now. And then leading back to the statistics, which again, I don't like the number part of it, but you know, from the age of 10 to 14, it's the second leading cause of death is suicide. So we have to think about that. I mean, 10 to 14, the youngest person that I know of was 7. And I mean, that is just, that in itself is just...
Yeah, like, baby, you just came out the womb. Basically.
Right, yeah. How do you even know about this, you know? And
right.
so what are they watching? What are they... And then it goes into all of those different things. Are they hearing about it from other kids? Are they...
Yeah, the
What
exposure.
is it? Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So it's just, it's a lot.
Those
It's
are,
a lot.
listen, here are the closing remarks. Those are some things that you would want to pay attention to when, in general, people, children, because it starts at a young age for some, you know, and just the fact that she's talking about a 7-year-old having to experience this. And I'm sure it might not be the youngest, but just paying attention to your environment, especially if you are raising a child, making sure that there is as much positivity as possible. Checking to see what they're watching on these TVs, putting those parental restrictions on their cell phones and the TV.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and creating that interpersonal connection.
Yes.
I mean, nowadays everybody works, you know? We all have to work. Times change. But having that, maybe we do sit down for dinner with no phones. Or,
Yes.
I mean, how
Yes.
old school does that sound? But at the same time,
It's
like,
necessary.
yes, you need that interpersonal connection.
Because, like, we talk about old school, but we didn't have as much, I guess you would say, issues,
Right.
as you would say. And some might say, well, the light wasn't being shined on it. There was a little bit more normalcy. But things have changed.
Yes.
And you're seeing more.
There's just more at play now. So we have the social media that came into homes, came into schools, so now it affects everything. And then, bullying. How do you get away from that? Because your phone is there. So if somebody's bullying, then you have it right there in front of your face.
Right.
So, and that leads into confidence. That leads in, just
those inner virtues.
Yes, yes. And everything is just so important. But it's kind of that step where if a parent doesn't know what to do or how to ask, then they can reach out to somebody.
Right.
And just say, look up kind of mental health guides for counties or schools, because most of them have those.
Mm-hmm.
So it even has just some generalized questions. But again, if you don't know, kind of prepare yourself so that fear diminishes, so that you kind of have an idea of what they would say. Okay, it might be this, it might be that. So you're not scared when they say, I am being bullied. I do have self-doubt. I do have this, or this.
Yes.
So
at the end of the day, I believe the key word is just, or phrase is just reaching out for help. Whether it's the individual himself or the parent that's seeking or need assistance with their child, just reaching out for help, looking for those resources that can help. Because doing nothing and hoping that it goes away, that's not going to fix anything. So the website,
it's Worth It. JAG, it's either .com or .org. We have both of those.
Okay.
So worthitjag.com.
worthitjag.com or .org. Thank you all for tuning in with us on Tarika Said Again for another session. Today, our guest was Danielle Graham. And check us out on addictivepatterns.com. Follow us on Instagram at Addictive Patterns. And please like, share, and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify.
Because you are worth it.
You are. And if you don't know, we're telling you.